Awesome. We're all here. Fantastic. Let me let me just get through some of the official stuff that I must say, and then we'll get started with this awesome panel. So, my name's Ilya. I'm the co-founder and partner at Sanctor Capital. We back early stage startups in the crypto space. This Twitter space is co-produced by Sanctor Capital United Gamers and dedicated to all things Web3 gaming. Now the official stuff that I have to go through. None of what I'm saying is financial advice. All of the opinions are my own. And Sanctor Capital and myself may hold positions in some of the projects or asset named, or may have interest in acquiring positions, or may have held positions in some of the assets or companies being named. In the interest of full disclosure, we have backed United Gamers, Harvest, and Metalcore out of the projects kind of that may be mentioned today. And now that the official part is over, I'm really excited to talk to, to introduce some of the speakers. Today, we're going to be talking about shooter games in Web3, and we have some of the most anticipated titles in this space kind of being represented here. So I'm going to open it up and let the speakers introduce themselves. I'm going to call on you one by one, and let you introduce yourself. Please just say your name, where you're from, what you're building. Everybody in the audience, please hold your questions until just about 15 minutes before the end of the hour, and I'll start calling on you then. Okay. Without much further ado, Minnie, you're up first on my screen, so can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey guys, I'm Grawai. I lead marketing and community at Mini Royale Nations. We are a Solana-based NFT game. We are a browser first-person shooter. We launched our first season back in December. We're currently in season 2. It's a cyberpunk season. And we have about 2 million registered users and around 600,000 monthly active users. So the way we work with crypto and NFTs in our game, we have various tokens that are coming out. Some are fully on-chain, some are not on-chain, and in-game and convertible. So we can talk a little more about that later. And we also have NFTs accessible through our battle pass. So as you play Mini Royale, you level up, you kind of grind through the battle pass, and then you can access items that are able to be minted and then listed as part of our collections on Magic Eden. So yeah, that's kind of the 1 minute overview.
Awesome. Thank you. Jay, you're up next on my screen. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hey guys, this is Jay Perillo, and I'm actually a radio jock, a streamer, host, and one of the influencers of UGD in the Philippines. And how I started with Web3 gaming. This is actually a funny story, and I've actually mentioned this one to like multiple podcasts already. But the first introduction I got in terms of Web3 is in a form of PowerPoint. Now, back then, Web3 was a new concept for me, and there are a lot of the usual pyramid or networking scheme here in our country. So I thought it was one of those. Now, after they did their presentation, I politely asked where the quote unquote networking part is, and they said that there was none. And it was kind of sus for me back then. But after a few days of doing my own research, I get to understand how it works, and I get to see how embarrassing my question was. So yeah, that's basically it for me.
That's a great story. Farhan, you're up next.
Okay, thanks. Hello, everybody. We are from Barcelona, in Spain. We are a traditional video games company. My team, let's say the founders, we started 20 years ago. We have been part of big companies like Ubisoft, King, Konami, whatever. And 2 years ago, we discovered this incredible and amazing world of the blockchain. And we decided to go and create a high production value project using blockchain in a friendly gamer way, I guess. We are developing the game. It's a third-person shooter. It's a fast-paced game. It's a mix of Smite and Overwatch. We are using Unreal 5 and what else? If everything is okay, we are opening the beta in October. So thanks for coming here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Calvin, please introduce yourself next.
Hey everyone, Calvin Zoe, co-founder of Shrapnel. We're based in the U.S., Seattle. The team's from Microsoft and HBO Interactive. Shrapnel in a nutshell is you could think of it as Roblox for adults. It's a escape from Tarkov-esque extraction-based first-person shooter meets a creative mode, all on chain, Web3 enabled. Very proud to say most of our assets are on chain as NFTs, except for bullets and consumables.
Awesome. Thank you. Paul, you're up next.
Yeah, hi, my name is Paulo. I'm leading partnerships at Planet Quest. At Planet Quest, we are free to play, a multiplayer exploration and survival shooter. We're based in IMX. We just entered the space in December, and we are geared for our pre-alpha in at the end of the year, maybe Q4 of this year. Yeah. I think the highlights that we have is that we're gas free since we're in IMX. It's free to play, and you can play the game in. It's an isometric top down shooter, so like a more of a Diablo esque view with some hints of MOBA through the skill sets, the gears that you wear, and then you can play the game in any device, like whether it's a potato phone or wooden PC or a browser. Even you don't even need a launcher for it, and you don't even need to access your wallet for it. So the user adoption we think is really effective and favors the community. That's some high level things. We're building a hopefully some cinematic kind of gaming universe of some sort. The staff that we have are from Lucasfilms, and Star Wars and all that Marvel. Our novel is being written so far as the plot is decided by the community on a week to week basis, and and the author the novel that we're writing based on what the community is building is actually from like the Telltale Games and Game of Thrones. So we're pretty excited, and hope to share more.
Awesome. Last but not least, Jonathan, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. And I guess happy Memorial Day to the people in the U.S. My name is Jonathan Moses. I'm the new executive producer on Metalcore. We're building a free-to-play shooter. It's got infantry and mechs and tanks and jets and stuff. I've been in the gaming industry for about 25 years. Traditional companies like Activision, EA, Disney, Atari, Obsidian. Most recently, I was at Scopely. So I've got mobile and PC and console experience. And so, like some of you other guys, we're leaning into traditional games and free to play to make a game that's super accessible to as many players as we can. Like no requirement for wallet. Hopefully, 10 hours into the game before anybody needs to engage with the economy and just get hooked on our gameplay loops.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Like I said, we have really awesome speakers today. So I'm gonna start asking some questions, and please feel free to jump in without any regard for order. Anybody can answer. As for the audience, please hold your questions. I will start asking with about 15 minutes to go till the end of the hour. So first, kind of, I'm going to start easy. In your opinion, kind of, what does the Web3 stack bring to shooter games? What does it enable them to do, and why is Web3 important to shooter games?
I could jump in. I think that from my experience with games like Call of Duty, I mean, players spend so much time and energy investing into their builds, and it just all gets locked up in the game. And what the Web3 and blockchain allows us to do is sort of unlock some of that player investment, right? I'm like in Call of Duty, you'll spend hours and hours leveling up your SMG with the new stock and then cool skin, and then you get a new weapon, and it's like, do I use this old weapon that I've got almost all the way leveled up, or do I use the new weapon that's all sweet and hot? And the blockchain allows us to enable players to really own that and decide that they want to lend their SMG now to new players so that they can start playing, or sell it or rent it, or do whatever they want. Like it's theirs, and so it's unlocking player opportunities to really expand and keep the conversation about the game going.
Yeah, I can add to that a bit as well, to some of the more nuances. So if you think of blockchains as replicated state machines, then in a game, at least for Shrapnel, we are recording state and state transitions. So essentially, whatever account balances are for various assets that players hold, you record that state, and there will be a series of state transitions for new balances and new accounts that will be, updated and replicated amongst all the nodes.
Just to add something, I am totally aligned with Jonathan, and I remember the first time that people explained me about blockchain and how smart contracts work. And my first thing that comes to my mind was the more than 2,000 hours that I invested in Diablo. And
Mhm.
maybe you remember the black market. And I said, oh, okay, so we can do that with blockchain smart contracts in a legal way. So and we can give something in reward when we have spent more than 2,000 hours in a game looking for something or evolving something. So this is something that I got in love with, and that's the pillars for in our case for the harvest. But I'm sure that all the other projects that we are speaking here are also driving these options with the smart contracts, living assets to do that. So I guess this is one of the most important things.
Yeah, I actually agree with what you guys have said. But aside from that, I think Jonathan, I think mentioned this ownership. It's a different thing owning a skin in game and owning the asset in game. And for me, I think it's a much smarter decision financially to own the asset rather than the skin, because there are a lot of things that you can do owning the asset, whereas owning a skin will just get you something like a visual effect in the game, or maybe just a few plus attributes or something.
Absolutely. When you only have that one skin, you've got the one character in game. Like you've got all these. Every time you get like that first skin is super exciting. Now I can put it on my character and show off, like, look at me, I'm a banana. And then you get the new one, and it's like, well, but I still like being the banana. And it gets less and less cool with every additional piece of content you have. And with the blockchain, it enables you to now take that other stuff that you've bought and still be excited about the new thing, because now you can show that off, but let other players use your old stuff, and it keeps all the content more relevant. And it's I think it's better for the community, it's better for the players, it's an easier way to get new players into the game and keep it top of mind.
A lot of great stuff that was already mentioned. Our perspective is more that adding crypto, adding NFTs and tokens into a game isn't necessarily enough to draw an audience or to make that sort of the defining factor. So our stance is that adding Web3 elements into a game that has an existing thriving economy is the best use case. So I think we've seen a lot of examples of games kind of in the space where there's a token side to it or there's a land side to it. But on our side of things, when you create an economy that's very social and thriving in that sense, and something that people kind of want to continue engaging in, an economy that is directly linked to the game in terms of things that you need to unlock or buy to accomplish certain quests and unlock other things. It all needs to play together in a very symbiotic way. So that's sort of our approach and how we use NFTs in our game.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add on that. Yeah, the tokenomics really has to make sense, not just for the company, but for the players. And I think for Web 2, it's really much more geared. I think leaning on for the game companies. But I think Web 3 we're changing, right? Because we're owning a piece of the internet and of the game, and it's very competitive because a lot of people have other choices on what games they want to play as well, especially with abundance of free to play or play to earn or play and earn models that we have. So I think in PQ, how we're amending it, or how we're approaching it, is we're hoping to give back at least 40% of the rewards back to the community when they really feel value they have in the game, and incentivize them to keep going on and experimenting, and like what Jonathan said, to incentivize them to lend their gear, even, especially if they not use it. Everything has a place, and once the seasons change, the gears, the skins are retain their value, or even appreciate in value. So I think that's really the wonder of Web 3.
Something curious that we heard about ownership, the economic aspects of it, the kind of the engagement aspects of it. But for shooters, in traditional shooters, we found that immersion in the created world is incredibly important. I'm curious, in your perspective, how important is it now in this new Web3 paradigm? How focused are you in developing of your particular games, or in the case of Jay, playing the games on the aspect of immersion? How much are you trying to go for that?
I mean, I think it's such a big part of making games, right? I mean, like it's how players get in, and for metalcore, like we're spending a lot of time building out our lore, with these warring factions and the story and what the player's role is in all of that. And so making it deep and just, I mean, we're all making shooters, and I've always felt that shooters are one of the easily the most immersive outside of VR games. I mean, you've got it's easy to explain to a player. It's point and shoot. It's playing tag. It's playing Nerf with your friends. But at its core, like as a game, especially with first person shooters, I mean, it's very easy to see exactly what your movement is, and your aiming and shooting controls go naturally from game to game. So we have a lot less of the sort of barrier to entry for players to understand what is the game, and you can really just be focused on telling the story and getting them into the universe of what we're building.
Yeah, I think for us, we specialize in transmedia. So back at HBO Interactive, our mandate was to sort of take AAA HBO IP and turn that into interactive content, such as video games. And we're kind of taking that concept now with Shrapnel, where it's not just a game; it's also a very lush world building experience. There's deep lore. We have a PFP NFT series with characters that all have comic books and backgrounds attached to them. It's potential for film adaptation or a TV show as well. So it's really that world building transmedia experience that creates that immersion for us.
In our case, the harvest is a new universe. So it's like other traditional games that for us this is key, because we know that maybe 80% of the players are more focused on the action. It happens in Overwatch. People love the lore, but most of the people, what they want is the playing, killing other guys, competing, and they are not too much in the lore. But I guess that it's very important when it comes to Web3, because as you mentioned, we have these new layers of metaverse or NFTs. And if you want to create something with sense, everything should be linked in some way, no? So we are creating new civilizations, new stuff, and I guess that all of us will be live ops games. So then you launch the game and you wait for being 10 years in the market, giving new content. And if you don't have a good basis, this is quite impossible.
Yeah, I actually agree, and I honestly think that this is a game changer because we know that there are a lot of popular NFT games out there right now, and one of the most common problem that I see from the posts that I've seen online is the balance between the fun factor and the earning aspect of the game, and this is actually a very challenging thing to balance. And I think shooter games or FPS games is like a breath of fresh air for NFT games. Also, with the popularity of FPS games, this will be like introducing a new breed of NFT gamers to the space. And to add on to what they said earlier, we all know how loyal the FPS players are in the genre.
Yeah, and I just to add, I mean, I 100% agree with that. Like it's really about building our games first, and I think the economy and the NFT elements, the Web3, like all of that should be, from the player's perspective, additive. It isn't that we're making NFT games that are shooters. We're making shooters that have, Web3 components in them. I think that's how we win with players.
I want to take this opportunity and kind of allow the audience a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, because I think the Web3 community kind of grew accustomed to project with a very quick development cycle. 3 to 6 months, a lot of forks, a lot of kind of quick go to markets. But games take a lot longer to develop, and quality shooters, especially long. And so, kind of, it'd be great if you can go into a little bit. What takes so long? Why is it such an involved process? And why is it worth the wait?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll start. Like making games is hard, and I think that in my experience, you do not get points with players for trying something hard and only pulling it off half-ass. Like players are not forgiving. Like you need to deliver something that is going to hook them and keep them, and and the parts that suck are the parts that they'll remember. And so it is the process is about building an iteration. Even in traditional games, you've got where you've got like a closed economy, and you've got I mean, we've all played games where you first jump in and everything is super expensive. Then as you play longer and longer, you get more loot, and then all of a sudden stuff is cheap, but of lower value. And so with these new generation of games, like we have to iterate on the gameplay, get the balance right, get the controls feeling good, and then also make sure that our economy is going to be sustainable, because you've got sinks and faucets for players that are traditional inside the game, but then you've also got these secondary markets outside that people are finding sources to buy tokens, to buy NFTs, to take tokens and NFTs out of your game and sell in the market. So there's a lot of work there that needs to be right.
Yeah, I think for us, yeah, I do agree, Jonathan. It's really hard to build a good game, and a good game has to make sense, not just the mechanics of it, but everything from the ground up. And I think how we're trying to approach this is we are involving the community from the get-go. So just as how we're involving the community, example in building the lore of the game, literally, the hands the lives of the characters in the game are in the hands of the community, as in, for Planet Quest. But apart from that, by the end of the year, I think we're issuing drip feed of features for the community to vote in and out on, and I think that really helps and really makes the really bonds the developers with the community, and that's something unforeseen in Web2, right? And in Web3, we're bridging the developers with the community, and they vote through how they purchase the NFTs, maybe how they participate in the server, and how vocal they are and how engaged they are, and I think that really gives us a 360-degree feedback and a good habitat to build.
So just to add on to that point, yeah, games for sure are very hard to make, but they don't have to be all made in-house, at least the content. So one thing that we're trying to, iterate on is essentially giving the community a lush set of easy-to-use tools so that they can create the content, have a voice, and be a part of the process, and sort of co-develop the game with us.
So one thing I'm hearing a lot, right, is player loyalty, engaging the community, kind of working with the players to build something new. I'm curious, we've seen a number of kind of pushbacks from traditional kind of big gaming communities. I think Stalker is like one of the biggest that comes to mind. How did you read into that? How did you kind of go through kind of all of the pushback from the traditional gaming communities? And what are you taking from that? How are you going and approaching your communities with those learnings?
Well, I think for us, so give Jonathan a break. is that we figured that the pushback is really because people just are very wary and skeptical about change, right? Skeptical about bridging their wallets, and it's a very unsafe environment. They feel vulnerable. So I think removing those barriers to entries really helps. I think one of our speakers also is doing that, where you don't even need to log in with your MetaMask or whatever wallet that you have, right? Like for us in PQ, you don't even need to install the launcher on any device that you have. You can access it through a URL, through a literal web link from a friend, and you can boot the game in like 30 seconds or so. I think slowly introducing features that removing these barriers to entries really helps the space. And eventually we are hoping to introduce more tools, right? Like an integration with a tech that allows us to create your own tournaments, that you don't need external things, right? An integration that helps you manage the yield, that helps you observe the yield management in real time without using websites or connecting wallets, and that's also imbued, right? And even more to the space, and I'm sure the space will improve more and more in these aspects.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with all of that. I just wanted to add that I think some of us are old enough to remember that. I mean, the amount of pushback that traditional gamers gave to the idea of free to play or games on mobile, or when PC was the what were real players, and people on console were for kids. I mean, it is our players just don't have any good examples of best in class. What is a good shooter that is using this technology that people can point at as an example for something that isn't that is something that you want to tell your friends to play. And I think a bunch of the people on this call are making those games that are going to be the examples we'll be able to use to, our friends and family and new gamers to explain like this is why this is the promise that we saw in this technology and why we're doing it.
Yeah, I think a lot of the
our
pushback is also due to folks just, this whole idea of tacking on NFTs. A lot of gamers don't like that concept, but I think to improve on that, we all just have to be very transparent about, exactly what we're doing, that we're building this from the ground up. There's no tacking on of NFTs of any sort, and that the architecture infrastructure is all sort of Web3 enabled from day one.
Fran, did you want to add anything?
No. Just to complement, because I agree 100%. This is one of the big challenge. All of my friends, they don't like NFTs. That's it. I am a gamer, and all my friends hate NFTs because they don't understand. So I guess that we need to educate these guys. So your question was, how do you face it as a company? What we are doing is trying to explain everything, to educate using, doesn't matter, influencers or everything that we post or everything that we explain in a very friendly gamer way, so for them to understand that this is here, this technology is here to to be good for us, not like a devil or something strange. But it's not easy, because when things are not objective, so when you hate something because it's just an emotion, it's difficult to to make people change their mind. But I'm sure, because just 1 month ago in the GDC, I was talking with big companies, and all of them, they have their own big projects. I'm not sure if it's true, but one executive explained me that GTA is going to be a blockchain NFT game. So it has a lot of sense, but people will need to see big productions in the market using this technology in a good way, let's say responsible way, and then they will lose this aversion. And I guess that everything regarding uh, reducing these barriers, like Pau said, it's crucial. So we need to make it easy for them to join. Make, if we can, make free to play games, and then, oh, I am discovering that, oh, it's not that bad. I invested 100 hours, and now I can sell some assets back and continue growing. So that's the process.
Yeah, I think that the space as a whole is still being super, super early, but I don't think a lot of the games have done an excellent job of in like two key aspects of getting people to mass adopt the like Web3 elements of gaming. And one of those I think is UX, and one of those I think is on the education side. So back from my days of product management, I kind of learned that like good UX should be invisible, right? You shouldn't even have to think about it. And then when a user it starts thinking about something and noticing, oh, there's an issue with this flow, there's an issue with this UX, I don't understand what this does, I don't understand what I'm supposed to do with this. Like that's when you have issues. So I think as we're all growing kind of together, well, those sorts of user flows and seamless integrations of essential um, like products and tools into our games is something that will improve over time as well. But also on the messaging side, I also don't think that anyone's done a super great job of making learning not seem like an arduous task for this space. I think that's what scares a lot of people away, is just the idea that they're going to have to be able to either defend their opinions about NFTs and really understand what that means in the first place. So I think we've, at least in some of the PFP spaces, we definitely scared away a lot of the more like traditional gaming communities who's like seen what goes on in the PFP space. I'd argue that Web3 games are in a entirely different bucket from that, but it's hard for users to understand those differentiations. So yeah, I think it kind of comes with time. It comes with better messaging. It comes with maybe even not even having to talk about the technology behind it, to have it be these seamless interactions to be incorporating your own sort of game lingo or jargon that players understand and can make mental models for without having to be like, okay, this is crypto, this is blockchain, this is on the chain, this isn't. Do I own this? Do I not own this? What can I do with this? And that kind of stuff. So I think it's a work in progress for a lot of us, but we're definitely making pretty big strides.
Yeah, I totally agree on everything that you guys have mentioned there. But yeah, even with its popularity, there are still, a lot of people who are hesitant to get into space, and we can't blame them because there is money involved. And on top of that, the news about certain projects rugging and FUDs around doesn't really help. Plus, the market that we are in right now isn't really that enticing for new investors. So I think acquisition is one of the key challenges. Now, this is just coming from a consumer, or maybe not even an influencer's POV, a consumer POV, that first, it's about hype. And second, it's about sustainability. I think that this is what new investors are looking at before jumping in on a certain project. Once you get the hype and they get a feel if it's sustainability, and like what the speaker from Mini Royale said, we have educated them, or you guys have educated them, then it will become a quote-unquote news that people will buy.
There's so much to unpack there. But by the way, I'm not sure if I remember to mention this, but we are recording this session like every other session for Waypoint, so you'll be able to come back and listen and digest this on United Gamers page when we post this, and I'll post the link as well. One thing that I wanted to come back to is a few of the projects here work with their community as part of the development, whether it's developing lore or developing part of the content or part of the world. And I wanted to kind of dive deeper into this. Why is that important, and what are the techniques you're using to really engage your community in developing the world they're going to be playing and living in?
I can speak to this. We have a couple different ways that we try to get players involved. Again, it's definitely early, and there's some kind of core mechanics and functionality that have come from the great minds at our team. I don't think I mentioned it earlier. Our co-founders also come from Scopely and Glue Mobile. They've been building games for decades, or a decade and a half, and not trying to out anyone's age, but yeah, there's a lot of things that we've already put into place via our white paper, and then finding the balance of when to involve community in that sense is something that we're doing now. So we have a couple different ways. We have a feature upvote board. That's something where players can go, they can recommend features. I personally review this on a weekly basis with our dev team, and we go in and see what makes sense for us to potentially add. We look at the most voted up. It's like an upvoting, and I don't think you can actually downvote, but it's an upvoting board. So you can go in and say, you know what, I want a melee only mode. And then if that's something that we see people talking about a ton in our community, and also is pretty high up on these boards that we point people to, that's something that we try to prioritize for upcoming releases. We also like to involve key members of our community. We have sort of a player council, and that's something that's been growing since we pretty much launched our Discord back in, I would say like October, early November is when we kind of revamped everything. But we work with specific members of the community who come from all different backgrounds. We have content creators, streamers, we have people who run guilds in different games. We have our headshot maximalists in our council. And before we announce key decisions, or if there's something that we're trying to think of, how to tune something, we'll bring it to this player council. We'll all chat about it, and then we'll kind of make a decision from there. Players have from this council, and then also from just general feedback that we've gotten in our Discord server. They've helped us with weapon rebalancing. This is something that players are extremely passionate about in FPS games. So if we make tweaks, that's something that we have a ton of input and feedback from. I think one of our player council members is actually like making the stats for the rebalances, or helping us to a large extent with that. But we also have sort of the classic approaches of like bug reports channels and feedback and suggestion channels. We also work really closely with a beta testing group. So this is something that we give access to early maps, new features, new game modes in advance. And we have a pretty extensive feedback system for that, and surveys that we conduct after that. So those are a few ways. In terms of like lore and content that's not essential to the game, that's something that we're open to now. But I think a lot of games in this space are really launching their core mechanics at this point. And I think it might be a while until we start to see some really beautiful like player created experiences, whether it's their own maps, their own weapon skins, their own, I don't know, maybe not game modes, but ways where we can take input to more of the like core recurring content of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just adding to that, for metalcore, our approach is definitely getting that player feedback and iteration, and we are planning on setting up like a test realm. Our later this year we'll be launching our open world alpha to let first players in and start getting real feedback, and then we're also setting up pretty robust data tools so that we can match up what players say with what the data shows us to be able to line up. Just because people feel like a weapon is underpowered, maybe that's because like what range are they doing it from, and be able to match data and the qualitative and quantitative sides together and make good decisions. And that's the approach we're going to take as we go live. Probably keeping our test realm while we also have a live server to be able to release features early and get feedback as we're going.
I think for Planet Quest, what we're doing is we have what we call a passport system, and what that means is that it's like a mini, how do I put it? It's like a Gleam campaign. It's like a Gleam IO integrated into our website, and so we launch various quests or we launch various tasks, right? And whenever our community members do something that builds up the community, whether it's in content creation, event coordination, or translation, or whatnot, or giving feedback for us, then they're rewarded. They're rewarded very handsomely, I think, up to the point that they can even mint our own NFTs once they reach a particular milestone. I think that really incentivizes and really helps the community to feel empowered that they are heard, and not only do their feedback matter, or not only does their participation matter, but it also rewards them with real life, like with tangible rewards like NFTs, our planets, our gear packs down the line. And I think we've been pretty transparent, as what Calvin has said as well. Transparency is really key, and I think that as we are unfolding new things, we always keep them in the loop. We always inform the mod team before we release anything, for example, and we get direct feedback from there, and it really brings the community closer and closer as we move on.
For Shrapnel, we also have a bunch of these off-chain discourse and voting events, such as maybe a contest, or hey, do you like A or B, or do you like C or D? We have a bunch of those, but we also think that it's important for the community to express their voice on chain as well. So our overarching thesis is this sort of creator mode where folks can fully express their voice and whatever they want to create on chain, and own a part of that. So I think having an on chain voice is also pretty important.
Awesome. Thanks for that. I'm curious, kind of following up on that. This is, as we mentioned before, kind of a lengthy process. So how do you manage expectations, and how do you manage kind of, community engagement throughout this development cycle? Because for a lot of the games that we're speaking up here, the development cycle can be very lengthy and can be a multi-year engagement. So how do you manage expectations? How do you manage user engagement as you're building up your universes?
Okay, I will jump here. In our case, we are trying to be, let's say, conservative, because we need to find the balance between exciting people and having the capability to deliver what we promise. Okay, so if we can do more, we will do. But as said before, making games, let's say traditional games, because at the end of the day, we are making traditional games with an additional layer that is the blockchain. It's not easy. So it takes a lot of time. And also, if the game is a multiplayer with real time, with a lot of people playing at the same time, in a shooter that must be perfect, because people is very, very demanding. So people want the perfection. People want to play Counter-Strike or Valorant, quality when it comes to shooting, whatever. So it's millions and a lot of people, top-notch people, making this networking work. So we try to put in the roadmap things that we really know that we can achieve, and then if we can give a surprise, let's go. But not trying to make a big hype when we know that it would be very difficult to handle. And then I guess that being very, very, very transparent with people, because people, it's true, it's very demanding, but at the same time, if you are transparent and you are not overselling and you are honest, people understand that you can have 1 or 2 weeks of delay with something, but it's it always happens. It's not exclusive for blockchain communities. So this is our approach, and trying to be the most transparent as we can.
So the way we do it is to kind of flip that question around. Instead of us being the sort of overlord creators who are managing our fans' expectations, we let the fans become the creators. We give them the right tools. It's like Shabu or Hot Pot. We give you the best ingredients, and you go create the masterpiece that you want to play. You manage your own expectations, and that way, you can't even get mad at it because it's your own baby.
I think this is something that's really difficult. So we're a live game. You can play now. We're on browser. It's miniroyale.io, but it's difficult when you're working on something that's still in progress or in beta. So I can kind of speak on what it's like building in public with a live game. But I know this isn't the case for some of the other projects, just in the space in general. There is it's hard to hit that balance between sharing as much as you can and also not having your product leads on your dev team get mad at you for telling people something's going to go live and it fails some tests and in our beta environments and that kind of stuff. So as a marketer too, it's also the constant battle of like, hey, when can I leak this? When can I leak this? Is this ready for me to leak? Can I show people this? Like, we want to build hype around some of or not even hype, but we want to show some people like this cool stuff that we've been working on. But it's always kind of a tango, right, with dev on some sides, because it's like we can't really share this yet. It's not ready. Some things that we found to be pretty successful in our sense, and I think Farron talked about this a little bit, is just being super transparent to the best extent that we can. So we have monthly server calls with everyone in our Discord server, and then we have weekly calls with all of our holders who have verified in our Discord server. And in those calls, we run through what's been released last week, what's coming up to be released this week. We do release notes pretty much every week, unless there's a massive feature that gets its own dedicated guide or something like that. But we share that out with everyone and try to show people, okay, we've done this so far, and here's what's coming up. At the same time, when you're trying to figure out what you can get people excited about, you pretty much have like a 1.5 month maximum leeway. We find that that's kind of the best like attention span that we can grab from people. So it's like, okay, look ahead a month and a half, maybe start showing flat images or 3D models or something like that. Maybe sharing some new maps, but it's really hard to tell people, okay, this is coming on this exact date. And so that's something that we just don't do. And I think in product management and development in general, that's something that you always have to be careful with, promising people deadlines. So as long as you're extremely clear and also sort of educating your audience as viewers and members of this community while you're building something, they tend to be pretty understanding. So while at the same time you're teaching them about your game, you're also teaching them about, what game development looks like and what we can talk about and what we can share with people, but always noting that, things go into testing in various environments, different types of QA and all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely a balance, but as long as you can kind of talk about what's coming and give people maybe little tastes of that, so they can understand in their mind what, on a high level, what to expect. I think that's kind of a good approach to do. But yeah, never underestimate the Discord calls and making sure people feel attended to in your servers and in your private chats as well.
Yeah, I'm going to add, like, I think a lot of the projects here, like I've seen really nice looking roadmaps that people are posting for what's coming up, and I think that roadmaps and transparency and keeping your community engaged is important. I also think that like what you guys have been saying, like that the our gamers as a rule are not fond of overpromising and overhype. I think that they've been traditionally pretty they have long memories for projects that have promised the world and then underdelivered. And on metalcore, our focus is definitely on going deep and controlling scope, in that we're going to be delivering this year with our open world alpha. We're going to focus on PvE and elements that don't require. We have designs on 50v50 faction wars, but we know that that's going to take a community behind it that we want to build and have investment in our world, and so that's going to come from us moving towards that. We're not promising these larger battles that we're going to be able to support on day one. So day one it's going to be PvE, and then when it's ready we will unveil the new features, and when they're also polished and ready for players.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And at this point, I also want to kind of invite the audience to start asking questions. If you have a question for the speakers, please kind of raise your hand, and I'll call you up. At that point, you can introduce yourself and ask your question. Please try to be brief about your introduction so that others can ask questions as well. In the meantime, I do want to kind of dive in a little bit into the economics of games. It's something that's been mentioned throughout the talk, but we haven't really dived into. There's a lot of kind of conversations about 2-token model versus 1-token model. I started seeing 3-token models. I'm curious what your take is. Have you discovered kind of the right path? Are you working through certain theories? What's your approach, and how do you balance kind of in-game economy with this new open Web3 economy?
I can jump here. To be honest, I don't think that anybody has discovered the magic formula. I guess maybe yes, I am wrong, but I guess that we are in the way to discover it. Also in Web2 games, it's not easy. It's not easy. We did thousands of Excel Monte Carlo simulations, a lot of stuff, and sometimes it's like, okay, it works, and why? Don't touch nothing, please, because it's working, it's monetizing, and we can keep the game, 3 years making money. So, of course, there is a science behind, and there is a lot of mathematics. But at the end of the day, I guess that we are experimenting. What we have in mind is for our game in the blockchain is having 2 tokens. The one that would be, let's say, the hard currency, the governance token, and the other one that will be like some kind of soft. But at the end of the day, I guess that after analyzing more than 25 games, pros, cons, etc., we get to the point that we need to give a lot of different options to the players to use this token, because sometimes we have seen in games like, I don't know, one example is maybe Axie with SPL. So
SLP,
you can only do you can only do one thing, I guess, or breathing or something like this. So it's like, why can we don't give to the players a lot of different uses for them to burn and to reuse and to auto balance this economy? And that's our approach, trying to get an economy and to give to the players a lot of options to keep the token there in the echo, to avoid deflationary and inflationary problems.
So this is a pretty spicy topic. We've thought about this very deeply. We decided to go with a 1-token model, mostly because we didn't want to bifurcate our community into 2 separate classes. One class that's sort of an opt-in governor class, and another class being more of a working class. A couple things there. We've seen 1-token models actually work. Ethereum, Bitcoin are 1-token models that have been battle tested. And it kind of works like that in the real world, where you imagine, you're working, you earn the US dollar, but you had to convert that US dollar into another currency to go buy a house, to own something. We think that just creates a lot of friction amongst the community. So that's why ultimately we went with the 1-token model.
I think at Planet Quest we're going with a single token approach as well. The rationale behind it, apart from not having a dichotomy in our community, is we find that I'm sure other Web3 games right now can upgrade on it or change, but the current state of it is that it's a dual token model seems to be very sensitive to supply explosions, right? As people try to maximize their gains, and maybe there are some exploits in the game as well, and it could lead to exponential increases in supply again, devaluing the utility token, like what Farhan mentioned is on the SLP, for example, and that's something we really hope to avoid. I think so. We're going with a single token. Hopefully, and we do have good feedback from the community, and we've thought about it very deeply as well. So I think that's the road we're taking.
I'm gonna pour a little bit more fuel on the fire. I'm curious if if there's thoughts about kind of interoperability. I really like Calvin's approach and thought about kind of the two different classes. But with that in mind, have you thought about kind of interoperability between worlds, and then with this one token model, how does it interact with other worlds? And how do are you not afraid of, let's say, governance attacks on your worlds that we've seen within DeFi, that those things are potentially possible? Within gaming worlds, if they get big enough and you have a single token model, are you not worried about that?
Actually, to be just a little addendum to that, to be perfectly fair, there's no such thing as a one token model in the gaming space if you're using your own project token, because there's an inherent other token that no one's talking about, and that is a stable coin or the US dollar as a unit of account, because we all sort of count in dollars. Everything's priced in dollars. Even ETH is priced in dollars. And unless you're, one BTC equals one BTC, you inherently also have a dual token ingrained in the mentality of your ecosystem. So our approach to make sure there's no sort of runaway inflation or preventing hacks, a couple of things. We rebase based off of the US dollar, so we can always fix a certain amount for fees based off the US dollar, to where the price paid is irrespective of the price volatility of the underlying. So you can think of that as, Ethereum gas fees, that's independent of what Ethereum price is. So that's one way to prevent sort of price volatility of the one token model. In terms of hacking, we are building on an Avalanche subnet, and potentially we can make one of our chains private. And in doing so, there is no block explorer, so it's extremely hard to hack something like that.
Super interesting. That's a really complex approach to this issue. I want to be mindful of the time. There's a whole other conversation here, but I do want to be mindful of the time and give everybody a chance to kind of talk about what they're excited about. I always like to close these talks with, one thing that every speaker is excited about in the next, let's say, 6 months, and especially with so many representatives here being from games, I think it'd be really good to hear everybody just go around and say one thing you're really excited about in the next few months.
All right, I'll start it off for a change. Well, for me, truth be told, I'm excited to see where the market will bring us in the next coming months. I mean, the entire crypto scene is bleeding lately, but I have a good feeling that we will be seeing a strong bounce back soon. So, yeah.
Mine's easy. I'm super excited about Metalcore's Open World Alpha coming up in a couple of months. We've got, as we've said, making games is hard, but I think some of you guys who already have a product that's live is lucky and living the dream that actually getting players involved and getting the feedback from players. I mean, just sort of helps crystallize priorities and locks down the product and makes it something that's even more fun to make.
I think for me, for Planet Quest, let me make it quick. Right now, we see the planets. It's really pretty. But in the next coming months, we actually are going to give a glimpse of what the surface is like. When people diving into the worlds, whether it's volcanic, ice, tropical, or whatever world it is, and see the various aliens that they are hopefully going to skin or kill during the alpha. So we're excited for that.
Yeah, on our end, I think something that we're really excited for is the implementation of clan wars, and with that, clan DAOs. So if you don't know Mini Royale, we have a pretty strong clan system and a ton of rewards for members who join in to create these clans. They can be up to 100 members, and so I think before the end of the next 6 months, we'll start seeing better UI around clan management, but also these sort of PvP clan events that reward our in-game utility token Cheddar, which is coming by the end of June. And then we've also set these up legally to be able to operate as DAOs. So that's something that we lay out a ton of information on in our white paper, and we'll be sharing the V2 of our white paper pretty soon as well. So keep an eye out. But yeah, clan DAOs, people coming in hot.
About us, the next month will be really exciting because next week we will be ready for massive test. So we will have all the backend for matchmaking ready. So it has been a little crazy because we have been approached by some of the best esport clubs in the world, and it's like, okay, guys, wait, we don't have even the game in the market, so it's not too much normal to have esports or competitions with teams like you. But okay, we will organize it, and we can announce that in June and July we will be making some tournaments with these guys. Our game is 4 teams of 3, so it's some kind of very competitive, and we are looking for these championships, and then after the summer, the open beta in October. So let's see what happens.
For us, I'm super excited about our creator mode. I've always been a Counter-Strike player, and just really loving that creativity that the community can bring. Just as a former map creator myself, just creation is just really awesome. I think everyone has that creative spirit. It's part of humanity, and can't wait to see everyone sort of express their own creativity through our lush set of tools, where you can create maps, you can create prefabs and map objects. You don't even have to create maps yourself. If you don't think you're good enough, you can just specialize in exploding barrels or burnt down buildings and waterfalls and whatnot. So I'm really excited to see where the community takes this.
Awesome. And I think that takes us to the top of the hour. I want to thank everybody who tuned in, speakers, for one of the most insightful conversations I've been a part of. Thank you so much. For all the listeners who tuned in, we will have a recording of this up. Feel free to share. About Waypoint. It's going to be weekly. We're going to keep talking about all things Web3 gaming. Next week, we're going to be talking about MMORPG. So that should be another exciting talk. And like I said, speakers, thank you so much. Listeners, thank you so much. And we'll see you all here again next week.